Make It Rain mode.
I love that. I love that for us.
A custom Make It Rain disco song for Collective. A Make It Rain game. You got to collect all the money.
Built this week, breaking it down. Built this week, we show you how. A fresh idea, a clever tweak. You locked in, you built this week.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Built This Week, the podcast where we share what we're building, how we're building it, and what it means for the world of AI and startups. I'm Sam Nadler, co-founder at Rise Labs, and I'm joined each and every week by my friend and business partner, Jordan. However, this week we have a guest joining us. I'd love to introduce Hooman, the CEO of Collective. Hooman, if you don't mind, give us a quick intro about you and Collective, and then we'll jump into the docket for today.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys, for having me. I'm Hooman Radfar, and I'm one of the founders at Collective. And just to give you a quick and dirty background on me, I've been doing startups for a very long time, actually my entire career. So I've never held an honest job and founded one company and sold it, helped join and was a founding partner at a VC firm, which is how I met a lot of great folks like Jordan and backed, I think, over 70 companies there and 50 personally. And then I'm back and operating in the Collective. So really excited to be here. And the quick and dirty on Collective is we're the first online back office that's specifically purpose-built for solopreneurs. So think to yourself, there's a lot of things that you want to do if you're the best designer, the best developer, the best marketer in the world. I think all the things you want to do don't include forming your company, running your books, running your payroll, doing your taxes. So our mission is for you to do the things that you love, and we'll take care of those things as your partner.
Amazing. So we'll jump into Collective deeply a little later on in the show, but just to give everyone the high-level agenda. And before I do, don't forget to like and subscribe. We have new episodes of Built This Week every Friday. And listen on your favorite platforms, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, etc. But for the docket today, Jordan's going to cover a tool he built with Collective in mind. I think it has some cash flow management views and some other opportunities for these solopreneurs. Then we're going to jump into the Collective platform. And then finally, as always, cover some hot AI news. So Jordan, why don't you give us the quick demo and a little intro of what you were thinking when you built it, how it was built, and then we'll jump into the tool.
Awesome. Thanks, Hooman. Great to see you. Thanks, Sam. I've known Hooman for a long time and seen Collective grow from just a small idea into a pretty big company it is today. And so it was awesome to get Hooman, who's been a builder his whole career. His first startup was really, really about builders and, adding in the, add this plugin. I wanted to do something fun today. So I asked Hooman a few ideas, or future features that Collective was thinking about. And so while I'm not a Collective user myself, I decided I would build out some of these features. So I want to give you a quick demo of what I built. I actually built two things today. So we have a little extra
I love
surprise.
It, man. Of course you did.
Yeah,
of course you did.
So, this is just the basic dashboard. I'm sure the Collective dashboard is much nicer. So, we don't need to spend too much time on the dashboard. But let me tell you what I built today. I built cash flow, insurance, lending, and some AI insights. I'll talk to you a little bit about how I did that, but essentially, since I don't know too much about how the Collective system works, I allow you to simply upload your profit and loss statement and your balance sheet, and with that, you'll be able to do cash flow analysis, the same for pretty much for your insurance, and then we'll talk about lending as well. Before I jump into that, the first thing I wanted to show you is just a little bit, try to make, the UI a little nicer. So I have light mode, I have dark mode, and just for Collective, I've made Make It Rain mode.
I love that. I love that for us.
I've made a custom Make It Rain disco song for Collective called Make It Rain.
I'm hustling hard, but the numbers don't play. Receipts and the taxes keep eating my day. But
I like it. So Jordan's going to run marketing for us, by the way. That's what Sam didn't tell you.
There we go.
Turn the hustle into champagne.
There we go, guys.
This is the feature we've been missing. That you could have just done this one feature. It'd be good.
I got more coming. Don't worry.
Okay. All right, let's go. I'm excited, man. I get to take this back to the product team and get them jazzed up or maybe upset that they need to speed up, you know? They got to go Jordan speed.
Yeah. Well, everyone likes to make some money, and I think Collective is a money management solution. So, want to make it rain a little bit. So, here's how the cash general forecasting works. I kind of like inflows, outflows, and I have it separated out here by month. Since I don't have access to your data directly, what I built here, maybe this will be easier to see in light mode. Hold on a second here. So what you do is you just upload your P&L and your CSV. I made 3 different businesses under my Built This Week holdings company. I have Sam's sewing business, I have Jordan's design business, and I have Hooman's consulting business. Hooman's consulting business does the most revenue.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, what you do is you can generate a forecast. So first, I'm going to just take my P&L and, I just generated some P&Ls here, but, I have Hooman's, P&L here, and then I'll upload, the balance sheet as well. So I have Hooman's, balance sheet from his consulting business. And then here you can say revenue outlook. If you think your revenue is going to go up, if you think your expenses are going to go up, or if you think your owner salary is going to go up. You can also do stay flat or decrease. You can kind of just leave it as is. So if you have some idea of your major expenses, and this could be it could also say rent, taxes, other kind of major expenses. I know for our business, we try to manage where we only have a few big major expenses every month. And so that's what kind of moves the needle, how big our credit card is or how big our payroll is and things like that. So, I figured, if you or revenue also has a big impact. So, if you think your revenue is going to go up or your expenses are going to go up because you're foreseeing something, then that might help generate the forecast. One quick thing here. I started with just using Grok 120B model just because I had access to it. But there was a lot of data inside these P&Ls and balance sheets. And so it wasn't enough. I needed a bigger model. And so, in fact, I moved to Gemini and I'm using Gemini here because I was able to take the data in. So let me just click the generate forecast button. So Gemini is going to analyze my financials. And this is actually happening. This is really using AI. And here it is. And I'll zoom in a little bit here for you. But basically, here's next month. Here's next quarter's projections next year. And it says Hooman's consulting business is healthy revenue growth, net income margins are fluctuating, and optimization expense management as business scales. So you get an idea, of kind of one way of how you could generate some expenses and do some cash forecasting. So let me just run into these other ones. Love to get your feedback.
What'd you use for the front end work?
Oh yeah, good question. I think I built the first version in Bolt just really, really quickly just to get something up.
Yeah.
But I quickly moved it into my IDE, which is Cursor, and then I used OpenAI's Codex to just do some coding for the front end and wire everything up and make sure all my APIs work. So I like to use Vite React as well as Shade CN and Tailwind, mostly because they're pretty responsive and they look pretty good. And then I use this special library for filtering that I like that always makes it look pretty sexy. All right, let's move into insurance. So I did something similar for insurance. So I had kind of your general insurance policies here. I figured you would input them or import them, and then you can run this thing called the compliance check. And then essentially Gemini will review your insurance policies and based on the data, it's going to give us here some recommendations, and I'll zoom in for those. But it says, moderate compliance, it needs some work in workman's comp and cyber liability. And then it says here, I need to renew my workman's compensation that it lapsed. So, insurance is something that we don't think about top of mind every day, but, I'm sure is important to small business owners. It's critical to make sure you don't lose coverage. So, that's how the insurance compliance check works. And then lending, something pretty similar. So we've got the holdings from our 3 companies. Remember, Hooman's company doing 27,000. So we've got a little bit of financial readiness here with our holding co. And then what you can do is you can generate a risk report as well as run your loan eligibility. So this is also using Gemini. I think down here it kind of has the idea of whether we'd get approved or not and kind of what the status is, etc. Obviously we'd use outside lending tools, but that's a little bit there. And then I have an overall AI insight, so you can just kind of get some overall insights of the business overall. I don't know if this one's working that well, but this is kind of the idea. So you get kind of these insights on your business and a little bit of a mix of all of these things in one single dashboard. So, all right, I got another thing to show you, but let's cover this one first. And
Wait, there's more.
Wait, there's more. So yeah. Okay, let's go to the next one. Let's go. But wait, there's more. All right. So, I made a collective song called Make It Rain, which obviously was awesome. And so I figured what else would be, a nice fitting built this week application, but a Make It Rain game. So I made a Make It Rain game. And you can just start by making it rain. And I think you guys will see how it works.
That's money now.
I got some music in the background. This is the OJs. So you got to collect all the money as it makes it rain. I can a little bit.
Can we get some cash money?
And so, you gotta collect all the money.
What do you use to do this?
This one I built in Bolt, using Three.js. And just like a very simple game type. It's got a clock and a timer and like your best score, etc. And then, I didn't have the Make It Rain song I made for you on YouTube yet. So I just used the OJs as like a placeholder. I don't want to get like locked out of YouTube or anything for copyright. But, it'd be great to put your Make It Rain song in here. I got 11 seconds left. You'll see it have like a little timer. Okay, my top score was, I think I'm going to get top score. Okay, cool. And then I'll get my top score. Let's see. All right, top score, 8,950. Boom. And then, the real way to master cash flow is with collective. So that's the real way to do it. So, all right, man, that's it. That's what I've built for this week.
Amazing. For everyone watching, Jordan sold me less than what he delivered. So he's like, I'm going to pick one. And he's like, I'm just going to do 5. Just kidding. Plus. And I'm going to make a song and I'm going to make a game and I'm going to perform the whole way. So yeah, I'll out deliver. It's really cool. I mean, it's unbelievable what you can do quickly with these tools. I think people still are, even on my team, in the world, they're still like not fully grasping how fast you can get up to prototype. And I think, people like you might be able to go from prototype to actual production. I think that's going to be the big last mile because, you look at tools like, I don't know how much you guys are using it. Like Lovable, for example. One of my favorite complaints from all my fellow founders is, it's great for setting up ideas, but then moving into production is hard. And so there's chains that you can use, to your point. Like you move over a cursor, you move over all stuff. And so the question is, can people do that or not? Or are these going to be a lot of toy factories for some time?
I don't know if you've used Replit, but Replit has a great kind of like end-to-end getting like applications from idea and chat straight up, into the browser that actually works. But I think we'll see Bolt and Lovable probably build something similar. It's just simply out of necessity.
And Figma is starting to get into, the space too. So I think everyone has an angle, right? You want to start with design first. You want to start with a concept first. So everyone will have a role to play and the race is on.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, Google is not going to stop with Firebase and Amazon's not going to stop with Amplify. And, so, it's going to come from all angles and everyone's competing for the same kind of thing. I think we're going to see, multiple winners, obviously, Versals with their V.0. So, we'll see, all different players. But I hope this was fun and like helpful for the collective community and the collective team on kind of like some ideas that could be cool coming in the future. And again, I'm not a collective user. So again, that's kind of my preface here.
Yeah. Just to transition, I would love to hear more about the collective platform and, from you as a CEO, how is your team thinking about AI, both, just for their internal work, and as potential features for the collective community?
Yeah. So, I always like the ladder up from like our purpose. And as I mentioned, there's 38% of the workforce that are solopreneurs in the United States. And that same phenomenon is occurring worldwide. There's $1.4 trillion of revenue generated by solopreneurs. It's huge, right? And it's growing. And AI actually is a massive tailwind on that, right? Because individuals, and we saw it with like Base 44, but there's this whole like race to the first $1 billion business of one, right? I do want to point out for the record, and I wasn't fond of doing this. We said it before, Sam. So, and it's documented. But anyway, if only you were paid for being first in ideas. So we want to make sure that we free that community to do what they love to do. And where we saw the gap was a lot of solopreneurs were stuck between two different types of options. Either they had to chain together a bunch of DIY tools, right? So QuickBooks, Gusto, LegalZoom, so on and so forth. Or, and this is the dominant solution, in the market, go work with service providers, accounting and tax firms. And so we said, let's focus very much on those 27 million Americans. Let's build them one place for the first time, a single application for the first time, a subscription price, right? You don't just get some bill and you have no idea what's going on. And let's manage across all these tools, because to the business owner, it's not bookkeeping. It's not tax. It's like, I need you to manage my finances. They're all connected. I don't want to know how they're connected, actually. And the analogy I often use for folks that are in the venture-backed world, we want to be like an office of the CFO. So when I go to my CFO and say, hey, like, where are we on our taxes? I just assume they're going to get our books closed every month and worry about our cash flow, get our taxes filed. We want to put that in the pocket of 27 million Americans. And today we've been very much focused on this concept of higher end income solopreneurs, right? So 5.5 million of them make over 100,000 a year. And all things being equal, if you do make that, there's this tax election that's called an S election. And a lot of people actually, LA, Hollywood types like Ashton Kutcher had an S Corp, and one of our investors, all those types of people have that. It's not a new thing. It's just, to do that, you have to form an entity like an LLC, S elect it, and then you have to do your books, your payroll, quarterly taxes. There's a whole set of things you have to do. But on average, we're saving our members $10,000 a year. And so when you go to someone and say, hey, look, I'm going to do all these things that you have to do anyway. I'm going to do them for a fixed price. I'm going to charge you $349 in a month, and I'm going to save you $10,000 a year. To us, that's like a really fair, complete package, and we're excited. And there's all these things that we want to do to extend it, both in terms of adding new services, making it more accessible and democratizing it so that people who aren't necessarily high income can access some of the services, in a different way. So yeah, I could work on this for the remainder of my career, and I won't be done.
That's awesome. And just one quick question before we run into the news, and simply because obviously this is the core of our podcast, but how has AI had an impact both on your company, on Collective, both internally, kind of like inside your organization, as well as kind of for your clients, for these solo entrepreneurs?
We look at AI for our customers, we call them members, in two different ways. The first is internally, and that was how we started. Okay. So people want to have efficient service. They want to pay less. Okay. They want it to be bundled. In order for us to realize that member promise, can we use AI to deliver consistency in the service, right? So instead of having a person, doing bookkeeping, for example, and specifically account categorization or reconciliation, can we have an agentic approach to it? Can we have an automated approach to it so that every time you're getting a consistent result, but that also means we can do it more quickly. And so we were looking at each specific flow. We would benchmark it. We'd look at how much time, how much expense it has, and then we're trying to innovate in each of those flows kind of in rank order. I mean, it's a very methodical process. And, the hopeful outcome for the member is that they're seeing a more consistent, quicker experience, right? And they get that price, that lower price. And look, who knows, with AI, there could be deflationary pressure. I'd love to lower the prices, to be candid, right? Amazon style. Now, the next level is, how do you build AI into the user experience, which we started to do. So we replaced our help center with an AI-enabled tool for basic questions about application, about tax and whatever, but we're extending it. And now we're starting to roll out features like you can ask about your account. Like, I'm a member of Collective, by the way, and that's real. I can ask what my payroll was. What did I spend last time? Things like, how much do I owe for my quarterly taxes coming up? Rather than finding the right place in the interface, I can, anything that has an endpoint within the application, we're starting with that. But the natural goal is, again, how do I get a CFO on this? Right. And so that's where we're building towards. So internally, we've been moving to an agentic infrastructure for, I would say, more efficiency, consistency, low variance service. But that same infrastructure is going to help power. So when you have your super agent that's accessible to the customer, they can query and say, okay, go ask the accounting agent what the books are. Go ask the agent that we were after on Gusto. Gusto doesn't have MCP, by the way, for those that are out there. So we have to build an internal gateway. And so that's how it's going to work. But imagine fast forward, in the future, what I see Collective as is, it is your collection or your collective of agents, right? So like, if I'm a solopreneur and I want to spin up a business, I set up the core Collective system that does my basics. But say, for example, I want to go get insurance, like the example that you had built, or I want to go get something else. I could go in to a chat and just say, hey, what insurance am I missing? It could tell me. I could say, okay, go find me the best quotes. And then it could get it and it would install the agent. And so effectively, Collective is a tool to discover, provision, and securely provide access to your data to these agents, just like you would an employee, right? And then when you're done with it or you move to another solution, you can decommission that agent, make sure you restrict their access. So think just like Shopify and Salesforce and other companies created provision marketplaces to applications. We would provide, provision access to these agentic applications and more. And we'll see where the world goes. So that's like the big vision for us. So it's everyone you would want to hire on your financial team. And we'll give the open market a shot to do different things, right? Like, cause we can't cover everything, obviously. I'd love to, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think about pricing and how difficult it is for small businesses to find the best price for pretty much anything.
Legal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Contracts. I mean, you pick but like imagine you as a developer and you guys are entrepreneurs and you get this. I can go and you say, hey, look, I will provide you a zero CAC distribution mechanism where you can go and acquire these users, which are incredibly expensive, by the way. This has been the challenge in the space. And you'll have access, you can, with permission, obviously, you can get their tax information, their financial information, their PII, everything they can permission to you that you would have had to do flows that are very low conversion in 1 second. What application would you build? What agent? I could go to, I bet you better.com, for example, would want to do mortgages. Because what is the information you need to underwrite a mortgage? Go give me your W-2. Go give me your K-1. Go give me your, have it. Let me have access to your bank. I have it. What else do you need? And so we really can enable a whole level of like financial service distribution in a way that I don't think anyone's ever seen before, because people are expensive to acquire, not just because of the CAC, but also because of the conversion, because you're collecting all of this really tough to get information.
Okay, that's awesome. We're going to move on towards the news. But before we do that, how do people find out about you or find out about Collective?
I am a very well SEO'd person because of the uniqueness of my name. So early in my career, difficult, but now it's good in my life. So just Google Hooman Radfar. I'm at Hooman Radfar on most social media, and I'm Hooman at Collective. If you ever want to email me, just go to collective.com if you want to learn more about what we're working on.
Awesome. Okay, cool. All right, we're going to transition into a little bit of AI news, and then we'll wrap it up. This story came out yesterday, but definitely like top story right now is just how much absolute amount of capital is going into AI. So, Nvidia stock jumped as they announced the $100 billion investment in OpenAI. Obviously, there's news in Oracle raising capital and them getting money and them investing. So it seems to be happening everywhere. But, I guess this to me means this is just the early days, simply just of how long it takes to deploy this capital and build these data centers. I saw Sam Altman on CNBC today and he was standing in a dirt lot. So it seems like he's far away from getting those chips online. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts as kind of where we are in the early innings of AI here?
Happy to start. I think first question is, where are we in the AI trajectory? I think we're early, but I think as most people would hypothesize, where the slope is increasing quickly. I think the other thing that's interesting here, though, so there's like these two schools of thought, and I'll simplify. One group thinks this wave is the last wave, if you will. Like we're going to get to AGI, super intelligence, with this wave. The investment trajectory you see here, the willingness to invest in lossy companies, all of that stuff, it's kind of with that hypothesis. Like it doesn't matter because whoever wins this wins, right? The second group thinks it might take longer, and definitionally there'll be a cycle, which means this cycle will bust. It doesn't mean AI is broken. It doesn't, not like negative on all this stuff. It's just there will be a contraction because there's going to be an overinvestment, and you're going to hit that classic trough of disillusionment, all those things. Like enterprises right now, they're trying to apply AI. They're spending a ton of money. Let's see if they can operationalize it. Let's see if it all works right now. And that's an if statement. Okay. And so, I'm personally in the latter camp. I don't think we're going to get super intelligence in the next like 2 to 5 years. Open to being wrong. Obviously, I'll caveat it with, I don't know. This is the weirdest, most difficult thing to call in my career. So, but if you make me bet, I think that's when I bet. And part of it is around the structure of these deals, to be frank, and how the market's structured. And I'm happy to go into it. But, I think this is, it's like Jenga. And I can walk through that. But Sam, I'm curious to see what you think.
I totally agree with you. I'm more in the latter camp, but I do want to hear your thoughts on the structure of this deal, because I think it's a little bit unusual. And previously being a VC and an investor, what's your take on the structure?
Well, let me take a step back. And I think a lot of people know this. Right now, the stock market is dominated by 7 companies. And those 7 companies are very much tracking along one company, specifically like Nvidia. And so, but Nvidia's market, they're very concentrated. I think on the magnitude of 37%, and I may be incorrect on this exact amount, but I think it's somewhere close to that, is like 2 companies, which they can't disclose, but they're probably in the Mag 7 because who has that much cash, right? And so what people are doing is they're in this chip war and they're buying again with this assumption that this might be the last time. Okay. Now, what happens if Google builds their own chip? And what happens if they're the customer and they pull back on Nvidia and Nvidia misses by 20%? What does that look like? And then you compound that with some of these, they're like round tripping deals. By the way, for people who are old internet people, this didn't end well. AOL was the king of round tripping. So what do I mean by that? There were these deals where AOL would go, and I don't know if people know this, AOL owned part of Google. AOL owned part of all of these different companies, Yahoo, Amazon, and they'd come in and say, okay, you're going to give us equity. We can invest, but you're just going to give us the money back because we're going to go like a lot of it because we're going to drive traffic, and then everyone wins because you go public and your stock price goes up because you're growing and we're growing and everyone wins, right? Apparently, DOJ and others didn't look too fondly on that. It's not dissimilar to what you're seeing here. Nvidia, for example, great company. And I'm sure they diligenced this. So I want to disclaimer, but they're going out investing in the startup ecosystem. So they put 50 million, 100 million into a company, but then they have, this company's buying a bunch of Nvidia chips. And I'm sure you look at CoreWeave, you're seeing permutations of that deal, right? Where Sam goes out and says, I'm going to get 300. How are you going to pay $300 billion to Oracle? Over the next N years, like it was a 5 or something like that.
The numbers are crazy. I mean, Facebook's promise at the White House last week. I mean, it's everywhere, right? It's everywhere. It's crazy.
Okay, great. So you're going to do that deal, right? And then it happens that Nvidia is going to invest. So Nvidia is going to put money in for data centers. Who's building those and who's going to be, it's Oracle, right? Like who's going to be part of that? Not just infra, but some of those. So my point is there's a lot of shuffling of capital, equity on one person's balance sheet, revenue on another balance sheet, and it's highly concentrated. And that dynamic, it's very susceptible to change. So if there's anything that slows down in this market, anything that stops it, I think you're going to see it's not going to be like a slow stop. It's going to be like hitting a wall. That's what I meant, Sam, by kind of the challenge. And I mean, the startup ecosystem is, going to be even worse. Like you can take any company. Some of these companies have negative gross margins, or AI companies have 40-50% gross margins. Can you imagine a SaaS company raising at the valuations they're raising with 40% gross margin? It's a joke. I mean, Jordan, how much pressure were the margins for you in the company that we worked on? I mean, it's not going to last. At some point, they're going to be like, I want cash flow.
Okay, well, let me just present an alternative here, though, just on this one argument here. And and I don't know if I'm right or wrong here, but if we just take collective as an example and you try to extrapolate the amount of AI you've applied into your business, and then you say, okay, well, like how many Nvidia servers am I using right now to support these things, right? You've got your customer service bot, you've got your, a few other small things, you've got your categorization bot that's going, right? So let's say you're using like 1 or 2 Nvidia servers, right? As you start to implement some of these additional servers, we're going to see that your consumption of Nvidia servers, especially as your business grows on top of that, is going to be maybe 5 a month or 10 a month or even 20 or 30 a month, right? And now extrapolate that to all these businesses who are currently applying maybe 0 AI inside their organization and will start to apply some AI. And even if they're slow, I mean, like the largest of companies, right? Even if they start to apply and they go from, 0 Nvidia, chips concurrently running to 1 or 2 to 3 or 4, right? That times the scale of all of these businesses could be massive. And I think to your point about how many small businesses there are, if each of those is using, a half a chip a month or a chip a month, right? How big does this become? And, my final point on this is I think Nvidia just announced some new like video chip, and, we've seen how good Veo 3 is and things like that. But obviously none of it is good enough to make like production quality television at scale. It's getting close, but you can imagine that a chip that comes out in 2 years and how much content creation that could generate and how much content consumption that can generate. And so like everyone becomes a content producer. And so, maybe you see downstream that like actually Nvidia is like actually undervalued, and that maybe, Google and these other guys can never catch up, and they can never build a chip that will be as good. And these guys will just own and dominate the market almost the same way that Apple dominated the phone market in the United States, right?
Well, I mean, I'll give you two counterpoints to think about. Everyone said the same thing about Intel. And then what happened, right? It does get commoditized. It does fall if they miss a couple bumps. So I don't think that they have a completely clear path. Now you have an amazing leader in Jensen, very forward thinking. I don't want to say that. And then I don't know if the space is the same, right? So that's one area. My argument is not that I think you're right. There will be more consumption of AI. Nvidia can be more important, right? So I'm not betting against Nvidia. My point is the way that the valuations are set up and the game is being set up, it's assuming perfect model. So like, I'll give you an example. And I don't mean any, like, to pick on like Cursor, for example. Like there's any of those, there's some of these companies that they're either a negative gross margin or very low gross margin, right? And I had a conversation with an investor this week, and they said the AI companies just fundamentally can grow faster. There's a new way of growth, right? And I disagree. I think some of the products are so unique, like ChatGPT, phenomenal, like brand new step function change. There's a couple of those, okay? But like some of these other products, at the end of the day, and I mean, you saw this with the on-demand ecosystem. If I offer you, Sam, $1 for 50 cents, you're going to be like, all right, sure, I'll take that deal, right? That's what they're doing. They're literally, the reason I'm saying $1 for 50 cents is they're just saying, well, at some point, this compute is going to be cheaper and I'm going to keep getting venture dollars until that happens. So there's a certain slope of costs that they're assuming. Okay. And it's very aggressive. Secondly, they're all built on the same couple foundation model of companies who also will have the same pressure. So it's not that actually they're giving you, just the $1 for 50 cents. They're giving you it even cheaper because they're giving for 25 cents because they're not paying OpenAI enough. They're not paying Anthropic enough because Anthropic and those guys are getting money from the Middle East at like in bucket loads and other companies. So they're like, yeah, it's okay if we're at whatever gross margin, 40, 50%, right? Now what happens when OpenAI goes public and they have margin pressure and then now they've won. What would they usually do? They will start charging more. They will extend their dominance and say, okay, I want to have 80% margin. I want to be a cash machine.
But the switching costs here are zero. All of these have zero switching costs. That's why Cursor is such a dangerous position. That's how they grew so fast. And that's how they can fall so fast. And same with OpenAI, right? Same with all of them.
You're kind of jumping on my argument here. So my point is actually, now let's just do this. This is why I'm saying if a crunch happens, OpenAI goes back to Cursor and says, Cursor, I'm charging more. Okay, is Cursor going to make the product more expensive or are they going to eat the margins? Well, I imagine the pressure that goes to OpenAI that year is going to go to Cursor's board, and their board's going to say, we need to get to 80% gross margins. Okay, now if I told you, Jordan and Sam, if you is Cursor, a great tool, I have no problem with it, obviously, that it's 2 times more expensive. Do you think that it's going to grow at the same rate as if it was 2 times as expensive? My argument is no.
Oh, of course not.
Okay, so this is my argument to VCs. I'm like, you're not experiencing a phenomena that's like this like brand new thing with AI for most products. Some of them are step function, different. I really distinguish between those. I'm just saying you're literally selling $1 for 25 cents. You're asking and you're acting like it's a miracle that people are coming and taking it from you. No shit. Like I would do that deal all day. We've seen it in all the on-demand waves. Homejo was a classic example and all these other things. So I believe in the AI stuff. I think we're on track. I think, Jordan, what you said about the Nvidia chips and all that is totally relevant. If you believe though, you're in the second bucket, not in the first, where this is the last wave, but there might be it's going to take longer. There is going to be a dislocation because of these dynamics that have been set up where there's so many companies that are at these low margins and basically they're all depending on this stack of 7, if you will, to keep these round tripping deals working.
I don't disagree with you. And that's where the question is like, where in the stack is there permanence, whether that's like at the Nvidia level, even maybe a level higher of TSMC, or is it?
By the way, they're going to be fine.
Yeah, so
they're going to be fine. I'm not suggesting, look, this thing's going to, like, what I'm telling you is those big companies like OpenAI, maybe they will experience some stock compression at some point in valuation. That's fine. That's what happened to Amazon. That's what happened to all these companies, and they became huge. What it's really going to do is crunch the startup ecosystem. It's like musical chairs. When the music stops, it's going to crunch the weakest. These guys who are really powerful, for the most part, they probably have hit the escape velocity and they'll be okay. Like Nvidia will be fine. So because the AI trends that you're saying are fine, the fundamentals are fine. It's going to take longer.
Yeah, I would just say, like, just to wrap up that point, in the last 12 weeks, my engineering teams have moved from using Cursor exclusively with Anthropic models to using Claude Code exclusively to using now OpenAI exclusively. And, what I mentioned to them is like, look, OpenAI is obviously subsidizing compute here and offering us, this Codex tool at a subsidized price. And we should take advantage of that. It's free dollars. And so what are we doing? We're maxing out the Codex usage because it's cheap as hell and it's really good. And, again, to your point, Hooman, like, I don't know if that will create enough dominance to force all the others out of the market. But if there's a new, sexier, cheaper model out tomorrow, we'll switch to that one. We got no loyalty. So,
and look at all, it's the same thing for some of these, I don't know, like these code gen platforms that are, I would say, more user facing, like Lovable, Replit. They could be fine. Like the Replit CEOs, Gangster, and all these guys are good. So they have to hit this escape velocity where they move from everyone's trying it, everyone's using it because there's 4 or 5 that are working and they're prototyping to, okay, this is actually part of my stack, right? I'm stuck. It's in there. And I don't know a single one of them yet that is like an irreplaceable part of any of my company stacks. Everyone's using them. So they started there. And so that's to the point there. For what we have, and the good news, bad news for a collective style company is we're in an area that's not in the crosshairs, like OpenAI, Google, and what have you. They're fighting a different battle, right? They're fighting the foundational battles. And code, for example, they have to fight because whoever wins the code battle kind of you have that like looping, if you will, where I have better coding tools, which means I can make my LM, better, faster. Eventually it's coding itself, Devin style. And like, you can't lose that battle. That is like an existential battle. But on our case, we have a huge TAM, $100 billion plus, but Intuit would be the incumbent. Now, you know what I mean? Like, okay, that feels fair. I can deal with that. Not to put down Intuit, it's a strong company, but that's not like I'm going up against Sam Altman in the thing he said he's going to do. He said he's going to own coding and all these guys. Like that's a tough battle.
Well, I think that's honestly, just wrapping up on collective, that's a huge competitive advantage for you guys is being able to integrate AI while big companies like Intuit will be super slow to integrate. And that, that will just make your platform so much better. And I think allow you to bring, more customers over.
We are like, to use a political analogy, I think if you look at one of the reasons the United States succeeded, part of it obviously is, I think it's an innovative country and it's great, but we were surrounded by 2 oceans. And when World War I happened, when World War II happened, it didn't hit us. And so we were the only supplier left standing. And so everyone that we watch is going to war. And there's this massive battle and we're just sitting there quietly building up something for a group of people that has been classically very overlooked. Even now, as much as it's sexy and people talk about $1 billion business one, how many venture-backed companies do you see in my space? They're not. They're all like, I'm going to build an agent to do this. Like I've seen like 50,000 secretary agents and 50,000 video editing agents and all this stuff. Those are tough battles. They're worth it. I'm not suggesting I wouldn't fight as an entrepreneur, but I'm not fighting that battle.
Awesome, man. Well, this was an awesome episode. Love to show you off collective and just for you to talk about your opinion here on the thoughts on AI and the market. Sam, maybe you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, great episode. Thanks for joining. And as always, we have new episodes every Friday covering the latest in AI tech and something we've built. And thanks for joining, Hooman.
Thanks, guys, for having me. It was fun. And Jordan, way to go, man. You never cease to amaze me.
Thanks, man.
Built this week, breaking it down. Built this week, we show you how. A fresh idea, a clever tweak. You locked in, you built